Thank you for listening to another episode of the Business of Fun podcast. I am your host, Dave Wakeman. My guest today is Brian Vinson from Resultant. And we talk about data, using data, baseball and other sports. We get into all kinds of data stuff. Data is one of those topics that I maybe don't always cover a lot. Maybe I caution you about how you use your data. We're going to get into that today. So this is going to be a good one for you. Before I talk about my conversation with Brian, though, I want to point you to a few things. First, if you're listening to the Business of Fun podcast, you might want to check out the Talking Tickets newsletter, which is at talkingtickets.substack.com. I also do a strategy newsletter called The Business of Value. You can get all of those if you visit my website. That's davewakeman.com. Right now, I have a special audit up there that's built off of the strategy stack that you can check out in the store. 2 free things I'm going to put notes in, or I'm going to put links to in the show notes. Links and notes and everything, right? First off, I've got this tool that I've created called the Pricing Blind Spot Audit. And it is 5 questions. It will take you 2 minutes, and it will help you understand where you're missing something in the way you approach your pricing. And let's be honest, we're all probably have blind spots with how we in our approach to pricing. This tool will help you find yours, because trust me, I probably have. And when I say probably, I mean I definitely have blind spots in my pricing as well. So check that out. The link is in the show notes. And in partnership with this, I've also created a webinar that is coming up on Tuesday. It is Tuesday, May 5th. Called 10 Ways to Turn Pricing Drift into Pricing Power, which will help you with some actions that can help you turn those blind spots into points of power for your pricing. Again, these are like 2 little free tools to help you out. I'm going to try to do a pricing workshop later in the year where we can do a little bit, get more in depth. But for now, a pricing blind spot audit and 10 ways to turn pricing drift into pricing power. So, fun and excitement. Make sure you join the Talking Tickets Slack channel. That link is also in the show notes. Lots of links today. Forgive me. But now back to my conversation with Brian Vinson, because I'm going to spend all day long talking about all this stuff. We had a great conversation. Brian is with Resultant, and he is deep into data. It is, and it was really great because he had a little slightly different take on things, and one where I could find utility to share with you. He is a data person. We talked about the difference between data and data. We talked about how data is not a story. We talked about how data evolves. We talked about how you can use data to have better conversations and make more money. We talked about your CRM, understanding what information you can gain and use to make your data more useful. We talked about scope of possibility. We looked at sports like baseball and horse racing. We talked about how they have created this tool as kind of like a Spotified rap version of data to help visualize things and help people understand, help fans understand things and make the data useful both internally and externally. Gamify it even. We talked about data anonymity. We talked about how do you use data when people are trying to hide from you seeing their data. We talked about just tons and tons of stuff about how to use data to, number 1, communicate more effectively, number 2, to make better decisions, and number 3, to make more money. I think 3 things that we all probably can learn from. So I hope you dig this conversation with Brian, because I totally enjoyed getting a chance to talk to Brian on this latest episode of The Business of Fun. All right, I would like to welcome Brian Vinson to The Business of Fun. Brian, what's up, man?
Hey, Dave, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I am great. I am totally like just enjoying the spring weather here in Washington, D.C. It's that 1 or 2 weeks of real spring we get. It's amazing.
I understand. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and we get like a day of spring, and then it's hot the rest of the time. So I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, it's hot or cold, and then spring for like a couple days. It's amazing. And I only bring up the laughing about spring is because you work with a company called Resultant, and one of the things that we were going back and forth about as we were setting up this conversation is you have a real passion for fan engagement. And I was telling you as we were getting ready to record that I also really feel like that's a super important thing and something that people don't always pay enough attention to. So I want to use that as like the foundation for our conversation in spring, because a lot of, you have a lot of experience with Major League Baseball or teams in Major League Baseball around fan engagement. It's almost opening day, or it is opening day as we're recording this and going out. That is a long-winded way of me asking you, can you tell me what your philosophy around fan engagement is and why you feel so passionate about it?
Absolutely. So, I am a data person, and so we could talk about, are you a data person or are you a data person? We can get into that eventually. And so what Resultant does is we're 400 people. We're a professional services consulting firm that works with data. And so we help organizations across the globe with their data. And so the particular set of data that I've been most passionate about and really seen is that fan engagement. And the thing that's interesting with that is that data is not the story. A fan feeling seen is the story. And so how do organizations, whether it's professional sports, or I've listened to some of your podcasts, so like in the arts, whether it's, ballet or symphony, like places where tickets are sold and there are fans and supporters, how do you help that individual fan be seen and understood that they're there and that they care?
Yeah. Okay. So this is already interesting to me. I think I'm probably a data person. I think I'm big data. So data. I'm a data person, not a data person.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the data is not the story, it's the fan feeling seen. It makes me think of this idea that if you've listened, you've probably heard me mention it before, which is like data looks backwards and research looks forward. Mm-hmm. So the way I frame it for people is data is reactive and research is proactive. When you talk about people being seen and you use data, how do you help people understand that? Like, I think I'm going to try to ask a different question here, which is, how do you help people understand that the data is evolving, that it's not static? Because I think that as I've thought about this reactive versus proactive thing, I think it's just that people want to have a magic wand that they wave over their data.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that like most data that sports organizations have, for example, is a bunch of like point data. And so they have a system that has all their parking information, a system that has, all their tickets, a system with their scans, their food and beverage. And so like those are completely separate systems. And those fans exist in all of those systems. So how do you bring all of that together to understand who Dave is and how he interacts with us so that we can interact with him in that research side, that proactive side? And so it starts with understanding how to pull that information together and then do something with it. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And I think that, and you tell me if I'm wrong. So I think I'm going to ask a two-parter here. The first part of this is that the reason the data you receive is point data is because of the siloed nature of so many organizations, right? There's, it's just sort of the nature of like, the parking vendors, there's food vendors, the ticketing sides and everything else. And then I think probably pulling it together becomes a challenge because it's not easy. Right? Like it's really complex to pull it together. So I know from past experience that a lot of times what happened, that sort of barrier, right? The cost and the difficulty of doing it stops people.
I know from talking to you, though, the importance of pulling it all together and putting it in a form that allows the entire fan to be represented. What does that conversation look like, and how do you get people to start moving away from it? Because one of the challenges that I think I encounter most is like people have sort of a fixed mindset about some of these things, and the way that they manage their data and they operate around their data seems to be one of them.
Yeah. So the way that a lot of these conversations start and get seated is like, how can we help you grow your revenue? And so understanding that the systems we were talking about, like there are probably different departments or business units within the organization that owns those systems, and all of those are separate. And so we haven't even talked about like a CRM that like would be used for ticketing, or a marketing system that's blasting emails and understanding, who those people are. And so if we can bring together those teams and go like, well, what information is possible? Like, what are all the pieces that we have? Wouldn't it be helpful to understand that all these people who are buying tickets, only 65% of them show up, or we have all these people that are placing bets, like on the gaming side of things, with like horse racing. Of the bettors, how many actually come to games? Come to races? Because that's a way that you can start to market things. Is if you see the percentages and who specifically is doing an action, you can start to say, does A plus B equal C? And that, bringing those data systems together, having that conversation about revenue and being able to drive revenue is one of the ways we start that conversation.
Yeah. So, and that it makes sense to me that you start with how can I help you make more money? Because that's typically where
my conversations start. Because it is kind of complex. And so if we could talk about how you're going to make money, then we can also talk about that it's going to cost a little bit.
100%. I go like, listen, if you have a better strategy and you manage your brand better, you're going to make more money. So whatever you pay me is going to be an investment, not an expense.
Right.
That's exactly right. So you talked about, though, what info is possible. And I think that it would be helpful for people to understand that when you say something like that, like what information, what's possible, what does that look like in practice? How do people, how would you explain that to somebody so they could understand the possibilities? Because I think when you say what is possible, it can seem very broad, and people might, it might just mystify people because they've never had a chance to like narrow it down. It's the scope, right? Yeah. If it's too big, they can't imagine it.
Yeah, and so I love the idea of thinking through stuff and how ideas work. And so I was talking to a baseball team, and like, are you familiar with Spotify Wrapped?
I am.
Probably your audience is familiar with that too. And so Spotify Wrapped works why? It works because it takes all this data that you probably knew was being collected, but you don't really think about. It understands every song that you've listened to, every album, every genre. Mm-hmm. But what Spotify's done is what we try to do and what we do. And so Spotify takes all that information and presents it back to me, the end user, as like, hey, I know you. These are your favorite things. Aren't you? Yeah. Isn't it exciting at the end of the year to see like this was the artist that you listened to the most? And so it's this, I feel seen and heard by Spotify because they're just collecting all this data. And at the end of the year, they show me, here was your favorite artist. And so in talking to this baseball team, the idea came up, like, we know what fans come to every game, and we know what stats happen at every game. And so one of the things, so the Texas Rangers, one of my clients, last season, toward the end of the season, they started sending out emails to their fans that said, hey, the ones that came to a game, thanks for coming to the game. Here's what you saw. And it was like the furthest ball hit, the number of strikeouts, the number of stolen bases, like just kind of a Spotify mini wrap, right, for the game. And so they did that. That was very successful. And now Major League Baseball is going to do that for all the teams this season. So if you go to a game as a fan, you can expect to get an email that says, here's your stats and what you saw, last night at the game that you attended or yesterday afternoon. And so in taking that idea and taking it further, the next step in that we are piloting with the Rangers and is rolling out for opening day is the more Spotified rap version of that. And so, Dave, you have been to 3 games and you've seen 4 home runs. When you get to 10 home runs, we will give you X. And so now, instead of just the individual email going out to say what you saw last night, you're going to get a summary of these are your stats. And so it kind of gamifies it and like gives you this idea that then is a marketing piece, is a more of an interactive tool, and lets a fan understand that like I've been seen and they want to reward me for this. So if I keep coming back, there's milestones that you can hit for the number of home runs hit, stolen bases, strikeouts. I can't remember all the different milestones, but they're going to keep track of all these different milestones for all of their fans, whether it's a season ticket holder or it's a individual person that comes to a game as a one-off. But because we're tracking that like Spotify tracks it, now we understand that Dave has been to 3 games. Maybe those 3 games were over 3 months that he came, but that allows us to then start to offer Dave some other things and make him understand that we want him to come back. Maybe we price in a discount for a ticket or give you a promo code or something. But it's just this really interesting way to shift from, the person that's in section 114, row 7, who's been to 18 games and doesn't know that anyone is paying attention to, no, Dave, we know you've been to 18 games and here's what we know about you. And we want you to come to even more games. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, that reminds me of, I don't have it on today. I have just a regular Patagonia sweatshirt on because it's always cold in my office. But I usually have a old school Supersonics sweatshirt from when I had season tickets to the Supersonics. And you had the scan card and it was attached to your season ticket. And this is like 25 years ago now. And they would reward you every game. And this is very similar because at a certain point, the incentive starts pulling you forward. And you're like going, oh my God, I can bring a couple friends to this game against the Clippers because they can't sell the Clippers game out. So you bring a couple of your friends and you guys sit in better seats. And it's like an amazing tool. And I guess so if MLB is helping all of their teams kind of give you like the mind, like let's say like that's like the monthly Apple, Apple Music.
Doing after each game is what MLB is doing. Yeah,
that would be comparable to how Apple does it monthly, right?
Yes.
Versus the wrap at the end of the year. Part of that is enabled by the way that there's the integration of digital ticketing and the way they use their app. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So then this would give. I'm just assuming here because I want to figure out how to use this example to help people in arts and all these other places. Mm-hmm. Any person that you have access to, like you understand who it is, you can track them and offer them something similar. So I think if I'm not mistaken, is like you just because you have an app like Major League Baseball. Again, if I'm wrong, tell me. You can use incentives to get people to raise their hand and tell you who they are, even if you don't have access to this kind of data that goes through the app. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Like, so you can get people to raise their hand and say, it's me.
Yeah. And as long as there's some way to tie it back to a person, right? And so there are privacy concerns. There's PII data that like we take into consideration. We don't surface any of that stuff in our matching and what we're doing. But the more information you can have about a person in each of those systems, whether it's their food and beverage system, scanning tickets, who their season ticket holders are, like the more information you can get, the more likely you are to match Dave by his, first name, last name, date of birth to Dave by his first name, last name, and another piece of information like years
Sure.
ago, right? And so the more, because all the systems don't have the same data about who Dave is, the more you can get in there, the more you can understand about Dave and customize things to him. And so the more systems that you are able to bring in, you then start to have all these attributes about Dave that you didn't have before. And so I was talking to a group that's building a brand new venue. They're putting in Wi-Fi at this venue, and I was sitting at a coffee shop for this meeting that was on Teams, and like I had to log into the coffee shop Wi-Fi, and it said, "Hey, to log in, what's your phone number?"
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Phone number? Okay, I can give you my phone number." And so I was like, "Oh my goodness, like how easy is that?" So when this group is building this new venue, like if you can gate your Wi-Fi and ask for a very simple thing, your phone number, like it's the same thing all the loyalty programs ask for. It's what the grocery store asks for, like to understand who you are. And so even if they tell you nothing else, like if you have their phone number, like you have the start of something, right?
Yes. Yeah. And then it would be simple. And I'm thinking about at the, so IMG or IMP, right? Here in DC, like the 930 Club, the Atlantic, the Anthem, you can check in at every event and like they give you a cupcake for your birthday. It's great, right? Like if you go during the month of your birthday, they'll give you a cupcake. I've got one over all the years I've lived here, but I don't need more than one. It's fine. But it's cool because, and the reason I was asking it, even though it's kind of like, I don't know if I was asking it well, it's because a lot of places think that like, oh, we don't have the technology to do something like this. But you've just proven, right? If you have a check-in desk where somebody checks in, they maybe need your phone number to get on the Wi-Fi. Any of these things are the starting point. Right. for your conversation, and then if they give you more information, you can obviously do more with this. So this is pretty cool, if you ask me, because I think so often you give your information away, right? Like, and then you don't get anything back. But like this is like cool stuff. Like if I was at the first ever or Ichiro's first Major League Baseball game, Seattle versus Oakland. Opening day many years ago, and so then they would have got that wrap. They would have said Ichiro's first game, Ichiro's first hit, Ichiro's first stolen base, his first game-winning RBI. It would have all these great things that Ichiro did in his first game, and it would be amazing because I would probably save that. So then it's like loyalty, right? It would tap into nostalgia. It would also show that the team cares. It would all these great things, and it's cool because, as you just pointed out, you can do it with very little. But you can get started with very little data.
You can be started with very little, absolutely, and it takes it from like broadcasting the same message to every single person to having a real conversation with the fan based on like what their season looks like, and so it adds that layer of human depth, human outcome. Like, yes, we're using machines and data to like pull this information together, but the feeling for the supporter, the fan, whomever is, oh, this isn't just a blast. Like they have my specific things.
Well, let me ask you this, because to me, that makes a huge amount of sense, because I think one of the things, or I'll frame it a different way. People all the time will come to me and they'll tell me like, oh my God, we get like a 1% open rate on our email. And we're happy because it's like used to be 0.5%. And I'll be like, my God, that's awful. and the people will be like so excited, and I won't say that. I'll keep poker face. And it's because so much broadcast. And then I think that in a lot of ways, people think that they're doing something that's a little more personalized, a little like leading towards a conversation. How do you help people understand like the difference between that broadcast and that individualization, that kind of conversation-based marketing? Because I think that in my experience, not everybody, but there's a lot of people who struggle with that. They think they're doing it, but they're not.
Yeah, so by default, I'm not a marketing guy. And so a lot of what I've learned about marketing is just from getting this experience with these professional sports teams and associations. And so the idea of, I mean, so I'm in a professional services consulting firm, and man, I cannot tell you how many emails I get from people who want to do business with me. That it's just like this flat email sent
Mhm.
from some CRM through a sequence, and it's like, if you like wrote me a handwritten note and like maybe sent me some, fresh baked cookies from someone that does that in the neighborhood, that would really get my attention. And so it's that same kind of idea in my brain of like working with these organizations to help them, like, what is the thing that's going to get someone to, one, open the email or respond to the text, and two, make them go, oh wow, this is different.
Mhm.
That's the key. Like, can you get them to open it, and do they understand that it's different?
Yeah, that goes into the idea that I share with people, which is like the next logical step. So the first thing, right, is like it's got to get into the mailbox, into the text window, whatever. And then what do you want them to have happen? And people are like, oh, I want them to click goodbye or do whatever. I go, no, you want them to open it.
Right.
You want them to be like get to the next step, right? It's like, oh, so you want to make sure that they read the subject line or whatever it is, and then you want to make sure they open the thing.
Yeah.
You don't jump too far ahead, and that's a conversation, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're going out on a date, like going, "Hey, I just met you. You want to get married?" I mean,
Right.
I totally know somebody who did that, and they're still married, like 30 years. There's one person in all the people I've met in my whole
Right.
life.
Right.
So,
And what if, like, I mean, I kind of think it's marketing holy grail. Like, what if your fans were looking forward to the email that you're going to send them? Like, I
yeah.
look forward to Spotify Wrap every year. I look forward to it. Like, I can't wait. And I can't wait to tell everybody about mine and compare mine to theirs. And like, what if the thing that you are sending to your fans that let them know that they're seen and that you know who they are and
Mhm.
it's personalized, what if they share that with their friends and their friends are like, oh, well, that's
Yeah.
cool, I'm going to do that too. And it's just not a viral thing, but it just really starts to spread, and people look forward to getting that email and they want to click on that email. Or
Mhm.
they're like, I love this so much, how do I get this like information real time? And
Yeah.
so then, like, maybe there's subscriptions that we could start to do, and like there's other ways that you start to build that revenue out for all these teams and organizations.
See, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it actually goes even further because I do a lot of stuff with brands and brands all over the place. And what I try to convince people in sports and entertainment is that they have one of the most incredible brand advantages that exist, because most brands, right, like cars, clothes, a lot of these people don't really care. It takes up a really, really small percentage of their thought, right? Like a really small, super, super small. But your sports team takes up this overwhelming area in your head. So people, it's not that the people are anticipating your email; they want that email already. It's just like you have to like not screw it up so that they'll click through and open it. And that's what I see is like people screw it up. I'm like, well, don't screw it up. They want to hear from you. They
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah, that's what I love about conversations like this, because like I am a huge Arsenal supporter, and
Oh, Brian, gotta go. See you
I
later,
talk,
Brian. You're out. No, Brian, thanks for being here.
but
Brian's got to go. Is tell it. Okay, go ahead.
I
That must
talk
be a
about
setup.
It was good. It was good. I talk about them all the time, and I talk about potential players are going to bring in or how the season's going, and like I have all this love for them, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And if they were to send me something that was like personalized to me, I would probably lose my mind. Like, oh my goodness, this thing that I love so much also loves me back.
Yeah, that's 100% it. So you do, we didn't talk about this before before we started, and I was looking to see if I had anything that would give away my allegiance, and I do. It's not mine; it's my son's. Um, but so Tottenham, that is my club, my one and only club.
Rough
Um,
season.
Yeah, tough season. But what they do really well is like every year they send my son a birthday card.
It's great.
And right. And it's like the thing this is like what's in here is his stack of all of them that he's received his whole life is like right here next to my desk,
Yeah.
and he loves it, and it's like so great, and it does. And I don't know what it is about football, global football, that causes this thing, but like I spend more time talking about Tottenham with my friends, like people I don't know, the whole thing. It's just amazing. So anytime they send me something, I really am like anticipating it.
I really feel like sports is the great unifier because in my home office, I'm in the office today, but I have an Arsenal scarf behind me and then a couple of hats from different teams that I've worked with over the years. And I always have my camera on for meetings, whether it's a prospect, a client, whatever. And even if it's a Tottenham fan that sees my Arsenal scarf in the back, we immediately have a connection and have stuff that we can talk about. Like it's the great unifier across the board. It's so funny.
It's it's interesting because and I'm sure everybody's heard this story before. It's like, so there's a guy called David Lynham who's based in the UK, and then another guy called Simon Mabb, and they're both he lives in Leeds now. They were the guys when I first started going over to Europe for business regularly, to England. They were like, if you're going to come here and people are going to take you seriously and you're going to be a part of like the culture, you have to have a football team. Now, of course, they were both huge they still are huge Spurs supporters, so they were like going, you got to support Spurs, you got to support Spurs, and so that's how it is. But it's like, it doesn't matter who it is. You want to give people a little stick, and like it just brings everybody together. They want to know what team you support. It is truly an amazing thing, and it's a connector. But it goes back to the point you were making, which is like going, most of the time if you're a team and you send an email out to people, they're looking forward to it. They want to like see or learn or get something new and exciting and unusual or cool that they can talk about, right? Because so the starting point is don't screw up.
Yeah.
And so like, and then there's just so many ways that you can make this meaningful and impactful. But one area that you mentioned when we were talking before we started recording, which I found was pretty interesting, was how do you make this work when people want to remain anonymous? And I was asking that question because I was thinking about the proliferation of gambling apps and like all the gambling that goes on around sports. I've worked with some racing associations myself over the years, and like sometimes understanding who the customer is or like gaining access to them and kind of making them their friend can be a bit of a challenge because people sometimes want to maintain their anonymity. So I was curious what you your experience is in a situation like that.
Yeah, great. So we recently toward the end of 2005 started working with a horse racing association. They have 3 iconic venues. They're in a specific state, but they have that problem, right? So they have their betting data in one place, the same problem that all these pro sports teams have. Betting data is in one place, ticketing's in another, concessions is in a third, and there's no way to connect them. And so they wanted to understand, is a person betting online the same one that's betting at a table, at a specific racetrack, or did they buy tickets to that? And so in talking to them and going through this, like that is the big thing. Like there's cash cards in horse racing, and cash cards are a way to carry your cash around, on an anonymous little card that you can put into the machine, and it knows your balance. And if you lose that cash card, it's like losing cash in the real world. So how do you figure out who these anonymous people are to show them that you care about them, right? And not that you're trying to report stuff to the IRS or whatever they want to remain anonymous, but like you want them to understand that you actually care about them as a fan, and you want them engaged, and you want them to come to more things. And so the Wi-Fi at the venue I was talking about, that is what it came up for. Was I was talking to this horse racing association. They're building, they're reformatting they're reformatting one of their venues, and it's this huge project. And the team they got to come in and build out their Wi-Fi for them. When they had spec'd the requirements, there was no gate on the Wi-Fi. There was no like, what's your phone number or what's your email? Like 2 simple things. Their concessionaire, like in the point of sale system that you have, Like they did not have any way, like all these concessionaires have ways of capturing like a phone number, but they did not have this turned on because they're like, it slows the lines down. And I'm like, okay, but if you want to figure out who these anonymous people are, the only way to get that is, through a sideways venture in like getting their phone number for the point of sale system, at the concession stand, or getting their email address for the Wi-Fi. And that just opened up this idea of like, oh my goodness, if we do these things and we pull this information together, we can serve these fans better. Because not that we know exactly who they are, but we know what they come to, how often they come to it, and we can send them an email or we can send them a text saying like, hey, thanks for coming to 12 races this season, or whatever it looks like. And so that's one way racing or other ways where people want to be anonymous can start to figure that out.
Yeah. And I like the concession excuse of like it slows down the line. It's like if you just offer people a point for every dollar they spend, I'll give you my phone number.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like, what is the value for the thing? I'll do it.
Right. Yeah. If I get 50, you get 50 points, I get a free beer. I'm like, oh man, just get them good. I'm good. Yeah. So I think some of the barriers are just. Let me ask you in a question so that you can answer it, as opposed to me hypothesizing here. It seems like sometimes the barriers to getting people to embrace kind of this collection, consolidation, and utilization of the data is sort of just ingrained bias, right? Like it's another step for me. I got to defend this piece of turf, right? I have to. We've always done it this way.
Yeah.
And I know that the starting point of the conversation is always like, well, I'm going to help you make more money. You're gonna give Brian some money, and Brian's going to give you 2 or 3 times that much money back because we're going to help you understand how to serve people better. I know that like that should be the winning argument because that's usually what people's jobs are. I know it's also not always the winning argument because there's other factors that go into any decision. When getting past, if you have to go past the money thing to like dig in deeper to get people to change, because that's really what this comes down to, at least I think, is creating positive change inside organizations. How do you encourage people? How do you get people to that point? Like, how do you keep people moving towards this? Because I what I want people to come away from this conversation with is like going, well, I have this data. I've been thinking about what I can do with it. I know that it has some value and it can help bring me closer to people. But I kind of either I'm uncertain because anytime I change, it's risky. But at the same time, I know I can I can do a better job of my fans. If I do a better job for my fans, I can make more money. But I'm stuck in the middle. So I want people to understand, like, what are like 1 or 2 easy things that you can offer to get people thinking and moving in a more positive direction?
Yeah. So it largely depends on who I'm talking to at the time and trying to suss out, or in my experience from the past, like, what is in it for this person? Like, what can I share with them that gets them to go, oh, this is beneficial for me too. It's not just beneficial for, our revenue team or, the CFO. Yeah. It's beneficial for me in IT, right? And so if it's like a technology person I'm talking to, like, man, if you're able to serve up this information about your fans, if you're able to talk to the rest of your leadership team and say, like, look, like right now we have a bunch of strangers in our database because we don't know who they are. We haven't tied things together to really understand that they're customers and what their preferences are and what they like to do. Like, from a technology point of view, like, that is good for my job, and good to show that I'm innovative if I'm thinking about something along those lines. If it's someone in marketing, like, what's in it for you? Like, I want people to open emails or I just want to understand that they're engaged. And so, like, just thinking about the thing that if someone moves in your systems from a stranger to a customer, like, what does that mean to you? And so I'd probably start with that question. Like, what does it mean for you in your role and in your career and what you want to do long term if you can take strangers and understand who they are as customers?
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, what you help people focus on is you push aside a lot of the noise, I think would be the right way, and get them back to focusing on what would success look like for them. And which I think is like kind of a foundational strategic question, right? It's like there's so many inputs that are coming on that, like, if you can't understand, like, you can't clarify what the success looked like, and if I tripped over it, I would know it. You can't have any success. You're going to end up getting distracted. Is that fair?
That's fair, because like in my business, like, we get distracted by metrics and chasing metrics all the time because like there's a metric that came down and people are managing toward this metric, and so everyone's doing what they can to make that metric better. But that's the dangerous part in sports and in fandom, is that like the data can't become the point instead of the metric. Like, the teams that are chasing metrics that nobody actually cares about are the ones that are, just kind of stuck in a spot. But like, if you can figure out what does the fan want to feel, if we can figure that out, then we can start to figure out what is the data that tells us whether or not the fan felt that.
Well, isn't that kind of the story of life, though? Is like, sometimes we get so wrapped up in the thing, what we're doing, that we forget why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Which I think the way you framed it just now is really great. It's like, well, what do we want people to feel? Because I come out of nightclubs. Like, that's where I started is nightclubs, and I tell this story regularly. But now I know you're a subscriber, so then I can tell you this story. That way you don't have to go back through all of them. But I learned what we wanted to do was we wanted to increase our check averages. At the time, it was a quarter per check, so it went from like $13.25 per person to $13.50, which in the mid 90s was a lot of money.
It was good, yeah.
Yeah, it was totally great, right? It was, and so we were trying to figure out like how we could do it. And so I came up with this idea of going, well, why don't we, when people come and order a gin and tonic, because gin and tonic was huge, gin and juice was huge because it was the 90s. Gin and tonics are still huge. And so I would go, well, what kind of gin do you prefer? And so we realized that question opened up these things of what people wanted to feel.
Yep.
And so if you start figuring out what people want to feel, the important point for everybody listening is they will give you their money because you have tapped into some emotion. It's not just about you, it's about them, right? And like the gin story is great because people would see themselves as a Tanqueray person. Nobody saw themselves as a well gin and tonic drinker. So they would be like Bombay, and like the marginal costs really small, like 2 or 3 cents per drink. But the price you charge was entirely different, because in volume. And these are similar economies of scale that sports teams can tap into fairly easily. I mean, use the example of the emails, right? People anticipating your email and opening it versus cringing when you get it and like just deleting it right away. You're still sending that email. So the big difference is like, how do I want this person to feel when they see the email from me? And then what do I want them to feel when they read the tagline? And then if they open it, like, what can I give them? Which is, I think what I've heard you talk about is you want a little bit of surprise and delight, just like the Spotify Wrapped. Like, I just got my Apple Music rundown for March. I'm waiting for that like every month. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's so simple, right? Which is like this is like data in action, right? It's like connecting the data to looking forward. It's that combination of the past helping create the future, not predict it. I think it's great. Before I let you go, 2 questions. First, I'm going to ask you like how people can find you on the internet, but before I get to that, I want to ask you, like, so if people just take away 1 or 2 things from our conversation today, what would you want them to take away?
I think the the main takeaway would be that every person in your audience has more fan data than they know what to do with. The question isn't whether they have the data, but if they're building or have built a connection between that data and the person that's actually sitting in the stands. Fans feel like the fans that feel like the team knows them come back. Like we were talking about earlier. Like if I knew the thing that I loved me as much, that brings me back. The ones who just feel like another ticket and aren't invested, like you're not going to do more with them. And so you have the information available to you in the systems that you're running, whether it's a log that people have to sign when they come in. Like you're gathering this information. What do you do with it so that you can respond to that fan, that supporter, and let them know that you care?
No, I think that's really, really great. And so how do people find you and Resultant on the internet? Like, where can we find you?
Yeah, so Resultant is a fun name. It's like consultants that get results. And so we're Resultant. Resultant. So we're like consultants that get results. Resultant.com, Resultant.com. I'm a practice leader here in sports and gaming. I'm on the website, Brian Vinson on LinkedIn if you want to connect. BRIAN, the B is in Victor, INSON. And Dave, just appreciate the time today. It's a super fun conversation. I can't wait to chat with you again.
This was great. I didn't even know you were an Arsenal supporter when we started. So this was like totally like I'm not going to say this very often, but a pleasant surprise. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you.
You bet, sir. Have a great day.
Okay, let me know what you thought of my conversation with Brian by sending me an email to my name, Dave, at davewakeman.com. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, make sure you check out my website. It's davewakeman.com, and where you can fill your little email address into the pop-up box, or there's a little box at the bottom of the webpage. Everything's little today. And you can and I can get you on the newsletter, Talking Tickets, or any of those blog posts and everything. All of that comes to you. Make sure you check out the links in the show notes, because I put together the Pricing Blind Spot Audit, along with the free pricing webinar on May the 5th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States. 10 ways to turn pricing drift into pricing power. If you can't make it live, there will be a recording, so feel free to go ahead and sign up no matter what. You will still get a copy of the webinar. Please, if you found something in this podcast conversation that struck a nerve, share it with someone you know. Rate, review the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Jeez, I'm like stuttering all over the place today. All of these things help people find the podcast, help me keep getting great guests like Brian, provides positive reinforcement for me, especially on the days when I'm stuttering and stumbling on every word that comes out of my mouth. It helps me. So please rate, review, and share the podcast. It's great. And as I mention at the end of every podcast, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, spending a little time with me, and I will talk to you soon. So take it easy. Bye-bye.